Hello, this is Weekly Wiki, and today's video is based on the very real Emu War. In the aftermath of the Great War, large numbers of veterans were given land by the Australian government with the intent of them becoming successful farmers. These farmers became crucial in the onset of the Great Depression, so the government encouraged them to grow wheat and would promise subsidies on top of any profits. Unfortunately though, because of these factors, the price of wheat fell, and then the government failed to deliver the subsidies. It was only about to get a lot worse for these farmers, because even though they knew that emus would migrate inland after their breeding season, over 20,000 of them showed up, and they loved these new wheat farms. In fact, for them, this was just the largest buffet in the world, for crops as far as the eye could see, and water left out for the livestock. For many of the farmers, having their crops destroyed by emus was the final straw, and they kicked off to the government, who came up with one hell of a plan. A deputation of ex-soldiers was sent to meet with the Ministry of Defence, and with them having served in World War I, they were all too familiar with the machine guns, and requested for them as part of their plan. But what was their plan? The plan was to take some soldiers with machine guns down to an area infested with these big flightless birds and just kill as many as possible. Transportation was financed by the West Australian government, and the food, accommodation and ammo was paid for, all provided by the farmers. In the end, only 2 soldiers were deployed, but they both had a Lewis machine gun and 10,000 rounds between them. Sounds like a solid plan, but keep watching and we'll see just how wrong they were.
Round 1, fight!
On the 2nd of November, the men travelled to Campion, where 50 emus were spotted, but they were out of the machine gun's range. They employed some locals to herd them into an ambush, and this is where they learnt the enemy's tactics. The emus would move around in mobs, and they would be of large sizes, but when they were threatened, they split up like the Scooby Gang, making it much harder to target large groups of them with the machine guns. After a frustratingly long first day, they'd only got a dozen or so confirmed kills, and on the next day, over 1,000 birds were seen approaching the gunners, and this time, they waited until they were in range and opened fire, only for the guns to jam, and all but a few of the birds get away. By the 4th day, it was reported that each pack had its own leader, a 6-foot-tall, black-plumbed bird, just standing there, on the lookout, ready to warn its gang of any threats. And the lads were getting desperate now too, even going as far to mount a machine gun on top of a pickup truck. And as much fun as that must have been, it didn't work for them. The emus were literally quicker than the truck, and it was so bumpy, none of the rounds were going in the right places anyway. According to the official reports, the number of birds killed by the 6th day was anywhere from 50 to 500. And again, this is the official report. The Australian army had taken no casualties, except for their dignity. Now that range in bird casualties comes from the fact that they would have been running away with mortal wounds and passed away from their injuries later on. According to the report, the birds' ability to move, even after being shot, was absolutely unbelievable, and they were often compared to tanks. With so much bad press brewing, and the emus growing wiser to the army's attacks, the government actually withdrew the troops and officially gave up, citing that they were no match for the emus' manoeuvrability and ability to split up. Unfortunately though, for the farmers, this just didn't cut it. In their eyes, the army had shown up, done a half-assed job, and then gone home for tea and biscuits, or I don't know what Australians have, like Fosters and kangaroo feet or something. But anyway, the locals were pissed. They'd seen no difference in the number of emus, and now there was no solution in sight. So what did they do? Kick off, obviously.
Round 2, fight!
They'd managed to get the lads back down for another round, and this time, by mid-December, they were killing 100 emus a week. By the end of this round, and after 9,860 rounds fired, 986 birds were confirmed dead, with a claimed 2,500 also dying of their wounds. They give themselves a pat on the back and head home. This was seen as acceptable by the government, despite the problems not actually being solved. So if you've not already noticed a pattern, I'll help you out. The farmers weren't satisfied, and it didn't take them too long to show their dissatisfaction, and this is where we finally see some drastic results. Because this time around, instead of deploying the army to deal with the birds, the government simply put a bounty on them, and anyone that brought one in, dead or alive, would receive a cash reward. So let's just think for a second. The army, with machine guns, managed to get 986 confirmed kills only a few years before this. Now, how many do you think the farmers got in their first 6 months? Maybe 500? 1,000 perhaps? Hey, why not even double it for 2,000? Nope. I'll tell you, 57,034. That's how many bounties were cashed in the first 6 months. So why don't we hear about these emus anymore? And what happened to the war on them? Well, after about 60,000 of them were killed, people were really angered about the fact that these now endangered birds were being killed. So We just use fences nowadays.